All right, techniques for negotiating a price down on an overpriced property, smaller multifamily. Maybe it's a 4-unit. In this case, it is a 4-unit. So I'm looking at this 4-unit property. It makes like $4,000 a month in rent, so $1,000 a door. Right? Wow, that was difficult math. And the guy wants like $400K for it. Will he get in this market? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know, but not for me. Anyway, so how do you try to negotiate this price down without being like, well, that's stupid. It doesn't make sense. You can't price your stuff like that because it's not worth that, right? That's not a good way of negotiating by to calling the guy dumb that you're trying to buy something from. So how I do it, I use the numbers, right? So I ask them, all right, what are all your expenses? And most of the time you can get like a tax return from them, right? And there you'll see all your taxes, your winter taxes, summer taxes, your insurance, lawn, snow, repairs, any utilities they're paying, all that stuff, right? You can kind of look it all and plug it into your little calculator, right? And usually that's like on a yearly basis. So let's say in this example, he makes $4,000 a month, but he's got like, I do have numbers, like $1,250 a month in expenses, right? So what that means is that he's actually only making, oh, that's a lot of math. I can't do that in my head. He's only making $2,750, maybe. I don't remember what the first number I said was, a month off the property, right? So after you pull out your expenses, right, and you're only making that much, then you still got your debt, right? The debt you're going to put on the property, plus you got a return that you're going to want to make on the property. So the little calculator I use, I put in all the rent that I get, and I put in all of the expenses that I'm going to have, which they come from the owners, and you usually have to adjust them a little bit, because when you buy the property, your taxes will go up, and you don't know if they fudged them, but if they're, obviously taxes they can't fudge, but if they're on a tax return, right, it's more likely that they're accurate, or they're fudged up, which helps you, right, because they're fudged up because they're not trying to pay that money on taxes, mostly in like repairs, lawn, snow, whatever the case may be. But just act like they're not fudged. You always have to have your taxes go up, mostly if someone owns the property for a whole bunch of time. When you buy it, it's going to get reassessed, and taxes will go up a little bit, or a lot, depending on where you're at. So you plug all that stuff in, and then you got to plug in your loan rates. So you should know what kind of loan rates and terms you're going to be able to get. So let's just say you can get like a 3.5%, 4% interest rate for 25, 30-year amortization, right? And then you're going to be like, okay, so at the price of 400, I don't even have to plug anything in. I can tell you that you're probably not going to make any money, just like off the top of my head with those expenses, right? So that's kind of how I approach the scenario. Is I don't say that, hey, I'm not going to make any money, even though I just said that. You approach it from, hey, no bank is actually going to lend on this property because it's not going to meet their DSCR, right? DSCR. Right, Lucy? Don't eat that. Please don't eat that. So DSCR is the debt service coverage ratio, right? And usually banks, they want to see it at like a 1.25 or 1.2 around-ish. The last loan I did, it was 1.25. So I always blame it on that. Be like, hey, so my mortgage cost me, I don't know, let's say it's like $2,000. And if I'm only making $2,500, you still gotta take into account management. I didn't even take into account management. What else did I take into account? There's a bunch of stuff that I didn't take into account. That's CapEx and vacancy, right? That stuff wasn't even part of it. So once you take that out, then your ratio is way under the 1.25, and no bank is ever going to win that. So this is a very long video of me trying to get out that I always blame it on the numbers and that no bank will loan on it because of the way the property is operating, and that's how I calculate my price. Or if there's comps in the area, you can do it on comps for smaller stuff like under 4 units. It's just usually hard because a lot of very inexperienced people buy smaller properties like that and they overpay for them. Like prime example, someone bought a 4 unit that I really wanted, and I was going to overpay slightly because it was like right in downtown Oxford. Someone paid like I don't remember how much it was. It was just way too much for what it was, right? But it was sweet because it was literally like walking distance to downtown Oxford, and I think there's a whole bunch of upside there. Plus, it would have worked. I think my offer was at like $380, and I should have paid. It should have been at like $360. But anywho, sometimes comps don't help you out in this scenario. But I always blame it on the numbers. I always blame it on financing. I always say like, hey, my financing that I get and that most people get is this, this, and this. For it to be able to be financed at an institution with 20% down, 25% down, I need to buy the property for X amount, right? And I always blame it on that. And if they don't take it, that's fine, right? Move on to the next one because I know what the financing place is going to give me for it. Mostly something like this that's already at market rent, right? You can't really raise the rent much. Maybe you can a little bit, but you know, nothing too crazy. But you let your numbers do the negotiating is, I guess, what the point of this very long out, drawn out video is. But that is what you should do. Let your numbers do the negotiating and not your emotions. And hopefully, if they're reasonable people, they'll be like, oh, that makes sense. Let's do it. And if they're not, it's going to be for sale for like the next 5 years. We all know those places, right? So anyway, hope you had a great day and a great weekend. And I'm just going to stop talking now because this video is like 1 million minutes.